we're at a point in time coming off of a wild Saturday of college football. People are consistently peeking over at this board. He actually would not be my number one overall pick, nor would I bet him to be the number one overall pick. I think you got that next wave of NFL players, which is so enticing, which when you see Jaden Daniels come into the NFL and you go, I can get something like that with a guy with just as good an arm.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I think the Washington Commanders are one of the best bets to win it all, or at the very least win the NFC.
Their offensive line, I do want to say one thing. It's very average. The coaching is good. They're getting good coaching from Bobby Johnson, their line coach, given from the Giants. But they've kind of overachieved. Let's call it like it is. Daniels has taken them up. Look, that division's not very good, and they could very well win it over the Eagles and the Cowboys. They're not a Super Bowl team.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Great to be back with you here for our Thursday edition of the show. The NFL, of course, is back tonight. We've got some big games in the postseason in Major League Baseball. Some great guest contributors on the show today from Sporting News. We've got Michael DeCourcy. Also, of course, from Legal Sports Report, we have Matthew Waters. And in addition, we'll break down the latest card in the National Football League ahead of the weekend with Brady Kannon, who's got his podcast all ready to go to make their picks for the contest shows. First and foremost, for those of you who have power in the state of Florida, like I do, very fortunate here in South Florida to have that, hopefully everything is okay. Certainly I know the cleanup crews around the state are trying to get things fixed up. Over 3 million people without power in Florida. Fortunately, we dodged it here in South Florida, so I'm able to broadcast for you guys and girls here on the show today. But certainly I'm thinking about that. A place, Sarasota, Florida, that I lived for almost 3 years. So certainly I'm hoping for the best for all of the folks who live on the west coast and central part of Florida as well. All right, we'll get to more on that in just a minute because some significant damage to a place that a lot of people are familiar with in Major League Baseball. But let's start first with the games that happened yesterday. If you did have power, speaking of power, wow, Francisco Lindor with the shot of the postseason, incredible. Late game to give the Mets a 4-1 win, and the Mets are moving on. They have defeated the Philadelphia Phillies. The Phillies, a heavy favorite going into the series, had the best record in the National League East, and it didn't make any difference as they got to the postseason. In fact, they had a really hard time scoring runs off Mets pitching throughout the series, and Lindor's big shot in the end turns out to be the game winner. 4-1 the final. The Mets will now await the winner of the Dodgers and Padres as they head to the National League Championship Series, and their manager, Carlos Mendoza, seemed to be at a loss for words for how it played out.
I don't know how to describe it because there was a lot going through my mind, the feeling, the whole dugout, guys jumping up and down, and just because it was hard for us, and it was hard for us the whole year. And then today, perfect example, got runners on and we couldn't come up with a big hit until finally, who else? They're an MVP, like I keep saying, you could write a book, you could make a movie because this is it right here. And then the whole time as the inning is unfolding, I'm like, Lindor's going to do it again. and there's no panic. The way he controls the emotions and he hits that ball, and it's unbelievable.
How far can the Mets go? I guess we'll wait to see here as they wait on the winner of the Dodgers and Padres. More on that in just a minute. Let's get to the Yankees and Royals. Boy, the Yankees needed that one last night. They escape with a victory in Kansas City. 1-run win thanks to Giancarlo Stanton and some really timely bullpen action as they take a 2-1 series lead. And they do have Garrett Cole on the mound going tonight. So, of course, that gives them a huge advantage. You would think going into Kansas City, stranger things have happened before, to say the least. But needless to say, when Giancarlo Stanton was traded to the Yankees, this was the moment that they figured that they would have. They have not had many of them from him in the postseason, but as Stanton said, that home run that he hit is all that he has been waiting for since putting on the pinstripes.
I mean, this is what I came here for, so, not always going to be successful here, but, you just got to keep working and put yourself in the best opportunity. We need to wrap it up tomorrow. No wiggle room, and we got to get it done.
Biggest favorite on the board last night in baseball, the Los Angeles Dodgers were plus 140 against a very good pitcher in the San Diego Padres in Dylan Cease. It didn't make any difference. 8-0 the final there. Dodgers right now have evened up the series 2 apiece. The winner in a Game 5 situation moves on to the National League Championship Series to face the New York Mets. I'll preview that game coming up in just a few minutes, but it was a non-competitive game from the start. Mookie Betts homered, and it was just a snowball from there. Meanwhile, the Guardians and Tigers, Detroit has a 2-1 series lead, and they can wrap up the series today. That is correct. How about the Tigers on the outside of the postseason, looking in for like 95% of the season? They're 1 win away from getting to the American League Championship Series, and the game will be at 6:08 Eastern. Naturally, at this point, no one knows who's going to pitch for the Tigers because even A.J. Hinch can't figure it out. But we know if it goes to a Game 5, it will be Tariq Skubal. Guardians and Tigers today. That's the first game. It is at 6:08 Eastern. Again, Detroit wins. They move on. Same with the Yankees and Royals. Kansas City will start Michael Wacha. The Yankees will start their ace, Garrett Cole. Yankees are minus 154 on the money line tonight. Total is 7.5. Now, as I mentioned, Hurricane Milton wreaked havoc on the west coast of Florida, and the future of where the Tampa Bay Rays are going to play, at least for the next, 8 to 12 months, has to be somewhat of a question because, unfortunately, Tropicana Field's roof was completely blown off by the hurricane last night, over 100-mile-an-hour winds. The Rays no longer have a roof. Will they play with a roof? Will they play without a roof? Will they play in that stadium? They have, 5-6 months to figure that out. I know it's a small story in comparison to all the people who have lost their homes and flooding and everything else, but it is a sports story, and I don't know which way they're going to go. I expect Major League Baseball to make an announcement later today. All right, good news for Fanatics as they have acquired the licensing for Major League Baseball's naming rights via the Players Association. They're the first sportsbook operator to have a partnership in a deal. Remember, the Sports Business Journal reported last week that essentially the Players Association was going after a lot of the sports books for using their names and likenesses on them without proper use. Well, now Fanatics has come to an agreement, and it is a non-exclusive one with the Major League Baseball Players Association. So similar deals can be struck, but Fanatics is the first one to jump in. Also, the NCAA's Division I Council has approved immediate elimination of, guess what? Everything that we've known in college for the last 50 years, the national letter of intent. It's now gone. How about that? The NCAA announced the historic shift. Now, of course, due to NIL rules and everything else that is involved, there's going to be a final hearing on this in April in 2025. But something traditional in college sports going away, national letter of intent. Tonight on the NFL slate, we've got a division matchup between the San Francisco 49ers and Seattle Seahawks. San Fran on the road tonight, minus 3.5-point favorites in Seattle. Higher total that you normally see on a Thursday night as well. The Raiders have said farewell to Minshew Mania, at least for the time being. Aiden O'Connell takes over as starting quarterback of the Raiders, and Antonio Pierce, their head coach, basically said it was time to make a switch.
You're named the starting quarterback for...
Yes, sir, Aiden O'Connell.
What went behind that decision?
It was a quarterback battle early on. Aiden started 5 games, and at this point, I think it's best to go with Aiden going forward.
In terms of the quarterback decision, do you envision this being kind of a constant battle throughout the year, or do you plan on making the switch for the good?
No, I don't plan on making switches at any time. Just when it's time to make a switch, we make a switch.
Not a lot of security there for Aiden O'Connell. No job security with the Saints right now as Carr is out and Rattler is in. Spencer Rattler will start against Tampa Bay at home this week. Also, the National Football League placed Jabril Peppers of the New England Patriots on the exempt list. He can't attend practice or attend games. He was arrested, but pleaded not guilty on Monday on charges that include strangulation and drug possession in Massachusetts. And also, the New York Jets are handing over signal calling right now to Todd Downing. He will be the new signal caller for the Jets, as it looks like Nathaniel Hackett is taking a back seat with the Jets' offensive play calling now that Robert Saleh has been let go. All right, in college football tonight, we've got a game between James Madison and Coastal Carolina. JMU at 9.5-point favorites, total 60.5. So that will be the competition for the NFL tonight. Doesn't seem like much of one. Colby Young, the Georgia wide receiver, has been now suspended after being arrested on Tuesday. He's the 8th Georgia football player arrested in 2024. Florida State starting linebacker DJ Lundy going to miss the rest of the season, unfortunately for him. And the biggest story, maybe in terms of retirement in sports, is that of one of the greatest tennis players of all time and the greatest player at the French Open of all time. Rafael Nadal has announced he's retiring at the end of the season. Also, game one of the WNBA Finals is tonight, Liberty and Lynx. We'll take a quick timeout and be joined by Michael DeCourcy of Sporting News next.
We're at a point in time coming off of a wild Saturday of college football. People are consistently peeking over at this board. He actually would not be my number one overall pick, nor would I bet him to be the number one overall pick. I think you got that next wave of NFL players, which is so enticing, which when you see Jaden Daniels come into the NFL and you go, I can get something like that with a guy with just as good an arm.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
If you're sliding DiVincenzo to the what? Obviously, Terrence Jennings Jr., that is actually dynamic offensively and defensively. So we'll see how it works. I think it's a little bit of a work in progress. Do both teams win? Yes. I don't think at the end of the day, Minnesota could have afforded to keep Cat, Rudy, and Ant with that amount of money.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
I think the Washington Commanders are one of the best bets to win it all, or at the very least win the NFC.
Their offensive line, I do want to say one thing. It's very average. The coaching is good. They're getting good coaching from Bobby Johnson, their line coach, here from the Giants. But they've kind of overachieved. Let's call it like it is. Gales has taken them up. Look, that division's not very good, and they could very well win it over the Eagles and the Cowboys. They're not a Super Bowl team.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire. Last Thursday night, we got one of the best Thursday night football games of the year, without a doubt. Atlanta, Tampa Bay. It was a really exciting game as Michael DeCourcy joins us. But, Mike, I think a lot of people were watching baseball last Thursday night, and so they may have missed a large portion of that game. And tonight's game, I mean, you see a total of 48.5. That's sort of what we're looking for in some of these games. Hopefully the NFL gets this one right between Seattle and San Francisco, a division game. The 49ers have underachieved. Seattle maybe has overachieved thus far this season. Do you anticipate a high-scoring game this evening?
Well, I think that it's interesting because Seattle kind of needs to win this game defense first. They don't want to go out and play basketball with the 49ers. That's the game in which a Brock Purdy is most comfortable. It's not been a great year for Purdy to this point. I'm not sure if you're allowed to say that, if it's legal to say that Brock Purdy maybe is a bit overrated, but I think you're seeing that now with Deebo Samuel a little banged up and Christian McCaffrey absent. We're seeing a different 49ers team than we have in recent years. And I think that Seattle, for me, I would expect Seattle to try to bring this game down to just a little bit more measured pace, to try to use their muscle, to try to keep San Francisco out of the game in which they'd be most comfortable. And I like the Seahawks in this game because this is a game they absolutely need to move forward in the direction that they want.
Yeah, 49ers have had issues in the division. We saw that game last week against Arizona. We saw the game against the Rams. It seems like every game, Mike, 49ers, they're up like 10, like early on. And then all of a sudden, like things start to fall apart. Geno Smith has had his issues on Thursday night. He has not played well. In fact, he has not won. Brock Purdy has done much better. I don't know. You can kind of throw away, I think, some of those numbers tonight. I don't know if they mean anything. But meanwhile, as far as the division is concerned, 49ers are still minus 115 on the money line. And Mike, think back a month ago, if I asked you, hey, what would be a good line if you wanted to take the 49ers to win the division, you'd say, wow, minus 150, minus 160, I'll take it, all the way down to minus 115. And, it does seem like while their defense has played poorly, Mike, the one thing that I sort of see here is that they've done a good job on offense without McCaffrey, and Mason's done a good job running. But, they don't have that pass catcher out of the backfield at all. And I feel like when Purdy was checking down constantly last year, whether it was McCaffrey or somebody else, I think it's a huge missing element of that team.
Yeah, McCaffrey is such a versatile back. It's why he should have won the Heisman back in the day and why the Panthers should never have traded him. He's just a tremendous player, and he brings so much to the field. And it has affected their passing game. I think Ayuk has been poor from the moment he signed the big contract. He has not been the player that the 49ers and some others who wanted him projected him to be. Only 21 catches on 37 targets, and we know a lot of those have been drops. It's a real problem for their offense. And the interesting thing about that line on the division championship is I think the problem with finding anybody else to wager on in that is that there's just such balance in that division. No one really stands out unless the 49ers get back to their peak or the Rams get healthy. And so I think that's part of the reason why the line on the 49ers is still as strong as it is.
Yeah, what's interesting is if Arizona at plus 420 was to beat San Francisco one more time and tie, they would be the division winner. So maybe that's the dart throw at this point for that. Meanwhile, there's been no dart throwing on the Washington Commanders, winning, covering every game this season. They've been fantastic. The Ravens, on the other hand, seem to need like some last-second magic in order to win. A total of 51.5 in this game. Jaden Daniels is the favorite to win the Rookie of the Year. He's one of the favorites to win the MVP. Everybody just keeps taking Washington. They can't make these lines short enough for them. One of these weeks, I assume someone's going to beat them in cover, but I don't even know if it's Baltimore this week, Mike, to be honest.
You'd think if there's anybody in the NFL that would understand how to deal with a quarterback like Jaden Daniels, it would be the Ravens, because they've had a similar quarterback, although I think not as adept at passing accuracy. I think Jaden Daniels is a generally more accurate passer than Lamar is, but there's that dynamism, that uncertainty about, do we worry more about the run, the pass, what he does? But I think for me, where the game here is problematic for the Commanders is they haven't really stopped the run. They've won, but they haven't stopped the run. And that's a multiple threat, not just because of what Lamar can do when he keeps the ball, but also Derrick Henry, who has been really physically powerful and has run the football very well for the most part. It took him a little while to get going against the Bengals, But he's been really terrific. And I think that's where if anybody could cover this, I could see the Ravens doing it at home with the ability to run the football that they have.
6.5-point favorites going into that game. Daniels, by the way, now 11-1 to win the MVP and the overwhelming favorite to win the Rookie of the Year over on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Lamar Jackson right up there, as you see as well. All right, Mike, tale as old as time. Cowboys as a favorite, stay away. Cowboys as a dog, I'm interested. Are you interested this week as the Lions are 3-point favorites in Dallas? Before the season, look-ahead line, even. Now, Dallas getting 3 at home. One of the most overvalued teams betting in the NFL, Mike, but they seem to do pretty well when it appears the chips are against them.
A lot of chips against them, though, Craig, with all the injuries that they have. And the Lions have not desperation. Desperation's a strong word at this point, but they're highly motivated because if this season could start to get away from them, if they can't go in there into Dallas and get a victory. The line is inviting. If you believe in the Lions, it's not a huge number for them to cover. I just don't see, if the Lions are any good at all, I just don't see how they don't win and cover here. And I think they believe they're good. They certainly were great last year, but this year is yet to be seen. They have not proven that they're a terrific team. Be honest, because of my concerns there, I would lean toward the Lions, but I would probably stay away from it.
All right, fair enough. Mike's more focused on the quarterback of the Steelers going into the week. Don't do it, Mike. Don't do it. Stick with what you got. He's good. Fields, don't do it. See you next week, Mike. Thanks.
We're at a point in time coming off of a wild Saturday of college football. People are consistently peeking over at this board. He actually would not be my number one overall pick, nor would I bet him to be the number one overall pick. I think you got that next wave of NFL players, which is so enticing, which when you see Jaden Daniels come into the NFL and you go, I can get something like that with a guy with just as good an arm.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
It's a new era in CFP to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
I do sliding DiVincenzo to the one. Obviously, Terrence Jennings Jr., that is actually dynamic offensively and defensively. So we'll see how it works. I think it's a little bit of a work in progress. Do both teams win? Yes. I don't think at the end of the day, Minnesota could have afforded to keep Cat, Rudy, and Ant with that amount of money.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
I think the Washington Commanders are one of the best bets to win it all, or at the very least win the NFC.
Their offensive line, I do want to say one thing. It's very average. The coaching is good. They're getting good coaching from Bobby Johnson, their line coach. Here from the Giants, but they've kind of overachieved. Let's call it like it is. Daniels has taken them up. Look, that division's not very good, and they could very well win it over the Eagles, and the Cowboys. They're not a Super Bowl team.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. As we mentioned earlier, there's a pretty big game on Thursday Night Football. We got a full breakdown and preview. It's time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. We've got a high total on Thursday Night Football, so what does that mean? Could there be 50 points scored on a Thursday Night Football game? I mean, last week's game was great between Tampa Bay and New Orleans and Atlanta. Can this game match the intensity? Can it match the points? Well, we've got Kevin Walsh, who's going to bring us a preview, and I was surprised to learn that Kevin thinks that more or less this game could be decided by the running backs as opposed to maybe the wide receivers and the defense. Here's our very own Kevin Walsh with a preview of tonight's game.
Checking in Thursday Night Football. It's a battle in the NFC West with the Seahawks hosting the Niners. A 3.5-point home dog for Seattle. Points expected in this one at 49.5. And if these offenses are going to be grooving, they're going to need their running backs to step up. Jordan Mason off of likely his worst game, filling in for Christian McCaffrey. Under 90 yards, no touchdown, and a very costly fumble. On the other side of the field, Kenneth Walker, easily his worst game. First time not finding the end zone, and he was under 20 yards rushing. A parlay of both backs to score is around plus 175. But how about these running backs to combine for 200 plus yards? That's around plus 350. How about 250 plus yards? Now you're talking around 16-1. These are two of the better backs to start this season, both needing bounce back spots. It could be a big one. Craig, it's back to you.
All right, some good options from Kevin. Of course, we'll have full previews tonight, later today, here on SportsGrid. Meanwhile, the San Francisco 49ers underperforming here in the first couple of months of the NFL season. A lot of it can be attributed to the offensive line and perhaps even the defensive line of the 49ers, not protecting the quarterback, not getting a lot of pressure. That seems to be the focus for the head coach of the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, entering tonight's game against Seattle.
What I'm trying to say is you'd like to build a team to where you don't feel you have to return a kick, a punt, or have a fake kick or a fake punt, or you don't have to rely on something like that to get a win. I like to feel that you feel like you can do it between the offense and defense of just beating someone. And I think in this league, one of the best ways to win games is to not lose a game, to not find a way to lose it. I mean, a lot of games are given away. And when it comes to special teams, with the amount of touchbacks there are and stuff, just extra points, getting a punt off, those are opportunities to lose it with any of those are blocked. There's only so many special teams plays that go into a game. And so you don't want to be overly risky on trying to win it there when you're only going to have 10 to 15 plays. You take out all the touchbacks and stuff, it's even less than that. So you don't want to go out of your way to be risky to try to get your stuff there. You'd rather do it with people who are out there for 70 straight plays.
49ers 3.5-point favorites tonight in Seattle. It would have been less if the Seahawks hadn't laid an egg last week against the New York Giants. So that puts them in a very important game predicament tonight. And Mike McDonald, the head coach, says that's always the case.
Every game's a must-win. That's our mentality. Every practice is a must-win practice. And then anytime you can go, tee it up for real, there's always a sense of urgency to do whatever it takes to win the game. I understand their position, but we're in a similar one as well. Again, it's early in the season, but every game is critically important. Hey, we're all in this thing together, and other people have used the terms accountability. We talk in terms of our standard and how we want to be and living up to being the football team that we've promised ourselves to become. So as individuals, when we fall short, we all want to look inward, and our guys are doing that as well as our coaches, and that's the way we'll always handle it here.
Full previews, as I mentioned tonight here on SportsGrid, and especially on our in-game live shows, giving you the different options as the game proceeds. Now, another way that you can learn more about all the different betting options across the board, whether it is Major League Baseball, WNBA, and let's also not forget the NHL is back. Just download the SportsGrid app for the latest news, notes, information, picks against the spread, and videos from all of our hosts. It's available for iOS and Android. It is the SportsGrid app, and just take out your phone and you see that QR code, scan it, and the app, by the way, folks, it is absolutely free. No purchase necessary whatsoever. Let's take a quick time out here on NewsWire. When we come back next, Matthew Waters joins us from Legal Sports Report, another sports betting operator exiting another state. We'll tell you which and what when you come back next here on NewsWire. Don't go away.
we're at a point in time coming off of a wild Saturday of college football. People are consistently peeking over at this board. He actually would not be my number one overall pick, nor would I bet him to be the number one overall pick. I think you got that next wave of NFL players, which is so enticing, which when you see Jaden Daniels come into the NFL and you go, I can get something like that with a guy with just as good an arm.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was Lincoln! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
I do a sliding DiVincenzo to the one. Obviously, Terrence Shannon Jr., that is actually dynamic offensively and defensively. So we'll see how it works. I think it's a little bit of a work in progress. Do both teams win? Yes. I don't think at the end of the day, Minnesota could have afforded to keep Cat, Rudy, and Ant with that amount of money.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
I think the Washington Commanders are one of the best bets to win it all, or at the very least win the NFC.
Their offensive line, I do want to say one thing. It's very average. The coaching is good. They're getting good coaching from Bobby Johnson, their line coach. Here from the Giants, but they've kind of overachieved. Let's call it like it is. Daniels has taken them up. Look, that division's not very good, and they could very well win it over the Eagles, and the Cowboys. They're not a Super Bowl team.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back. Matthew Waters is with us from LegalSportsReport.com. We'll have the very latest going on with everything in the world of sports wagering, news and updates as well. Matt, great to have you back here on the show. Let's start off with the latest on Penn and their investors as it pertains to ESPN Bet. I know very mixed results for quarter number one, quarter number two. Trying to change and upgrade the technology means some things, I guess, have to go budget-wise. Tell us more.
Yeah, you know what, Craig? It's been interesting to see how Penn is playing through this process. And basically what we know now is that where they've had bigger losses than expected in the first and second quarters, those losses from the interactive side will be smaller for the third quarter. And we see that it's because already they're seeing a boost to their parlay system. And we've talked about how for forever now that they have to get their parlays and they have to get their app integration down correctly. And the parlays are looking good so far. They have their parlay lounge up, and it gives you all kinds of different options to go in and make your parlays, same game parlays, whatever it may be. They expect to lose about $95 million from Interactive this quarter. It's down from $125 million at the last EBITDA guidance midpoint. They're also holding better. The more parlays mean you're going to hold more. And they're also over-indexing with the mass market is how they put it, which basically means that more casual bettors are coming to ESPN than they expected, and they're winning more than they expected. So that's all positive moving forward. That's what we want to see. It was interesting because the presentation included a slide about September successes for ESPN Bet and showing all kinds of growth. But if you remember, we didn't have ESPN Bet last September. We had kind of a zombie Barstool sportsbook out there from Penn because they weren't promoting the Barstool brand anymore. They were doing everything on the back end they had to get ready to flip over to ESPN Bet, which happened mid-November. So those were kind of irrelevant. We didn't include them in the story. We linked to the whole presentation, so obviously everybody could go through it. But it doesn't really show the true picture of what's going on. What I do think is interesting, Craig, is if you remember when this ESPN deal came out, Penn went through and they gave a whole bunch of different scenarios for market share that they expect to hit in 2027. Their base, their bull, and their bear case, right? Well, they gave us some information for 2026. And while they had previously said that in 2027, a 10% sports betting share would be around the point where both sides started to get excited about what they were doing. Now they're saying that in 2026, a 10% sports betting share is their best case scenario. That's where they're bullish. So it's interesting because last time for 2027, they gave breakdowns at 10%, 15%, and 20% of the online sports betting share. And now they're looking at between a 6% online sports betting share at the bottom and 10% at the top. So are we seeing moving goalposts there? I'm not sure. They may just come back and say, well, it's a year off. We still expect this for that,
Right.
Whatever it may be. What's interesting, Craig, is we're seeing a huge boost in their online database. They're up to 3.9 million customers at the end of the third quarter, and that's up 1.8 million customers, or 85%, since ESPN and Penn signed this deal. So we see that there is movement based on the ESPN brand, and now we're seeing that there is that casual pickup from people as well that, maybe they went to a DraftKings or a FanDuel before because that was just what they were used to, right? And now they know that, the network that they watch every day to catch their highlights, I got a sports book too. May as well check them out. Now they seem to be a little bit more on par with the other guys. So it'll be interesting to see what Penn can do moving forward. Now, they still don't have their account linking down. That is supposed to come by NBA tip-off on October 22nd. So should be able to link your ESPN and your ESPN Bet account by October 22nd. And that will help with betting from that main ESPN app, building a bet slip and then moving it over to ESPN Bet and pushing it through. So everything from what they're saying looks like it's moving in the right direction, Craig. They're seeing great value out of customers that bet both at their retail properties and online. Those customers that bet at both places, they're worth 4 times more than a customer that just bets on one of those channels. So there's a lot of positives in there for ESPN Bet and Penn, but it worries me that we're starting to look at different expectations for the sports betting share, because if you remember, Disney can end this after 3 years. It's a 10-year deal, but Disney can end this after 3 years if it's not going well. And then where would Penn be when it comes to the sports betting game? They would have failed on Barstool. It just did not turn out the way they thought it would. And then that would be a failure with ESPN and Disney. So we know Penn doesn't want that to happen. We know they're working hard behind the scenes to get it working. And we'll see how well it goes, Craig.
All right, let's move on real quick. We got a couple more stories to get to here. Betfred, a sports betting operator very popular outside of the United States, tried to come into the United States and have the same success. It appears that's not going to be the case, Matthew, as they depart another state.
Yeah, and Betfred has been interesting in this way, Craig, because we haven't really seen a slow state-by-state exit, right? We've seen brands just kind of say, okay, it's not working for us, we're going to shut it down. Or, okay, wasn't working for us, we sold our technology, and that's what it'll be. Betfred has kind of let this thing bleed for a couple of months. They've been pulling the Band-Aid off quite slowly, and now they're leaving Virginia. And Virginia is one of those markets where they can actually monetize that license, Craig, because Virginia only has so many licenses. And now that they're giving that up, we'll have to see who comes into Virginia, who tries to buy that license and make their way onto it. But yeah, Betfred was one of those brands when sports betting started in the U.S. that said, yeah, we're coming to the U.S. And we knew they could do it in the U.K. We knew they could do it in Europe. But it was always that question of how well is the European sports betting experience going to expand into the US? And it just didn't come that easily, Craig. And so Betfred is another one. They're now, they have a couple of states left. They run mobile for Pennsylvania, for Wind Creek Casino, and they run mobile on their own brand for Iowa. And then they also have retail operations in Washington and Nevada. Don't know how long we're going to be looking at the rest of that, but it seems like a full pullout is coming for Betfred.
All right, finally, let's wrap it up with the big NBA story off the court this week, which was Shams Charania joining ESPN after spending many years at Yahoo and then, of course, at Stadium and FanDuel, if I'm not mistaken. It just seemed like the timing really is what aligned here. If Shams was not a quote-unquote free agent, I don't know that he would have been able to join ESPN as an insider. I've seen reports about finances that he's getting less than Woj. I don't know if any of these things are true, but needless to say, he's done a fantastic job breaking news for the past decade, and so this should come as no surprise.
It should come as no surprise, Craig. And you're right. All the stars kind of aligned for him here with Woj leaving, and then we know from the New York Post that his contract was up with FanDuel at the end of the summer. Now, it looks like he will not be able to renew that deal with FanDuel because of ESPN, which you would expect, but Sam McQuillan got information on that and kind of confirmed that for us. So, yeah, interesting move for Shams. We know that he won't much with the ESPN Sportsbook because they just don't do that with their personalities at ESPN outside of ads.
Yeah, they do have shows, I know, that are like sponsored or like partnered with ESPN Bet, but it does remain to be seen who participates on that on a week-to-week basis. All right, Matt, great rest of the week. Thanks again for coming on.
Thanks.
Brady Kannon is up next.
We're at a point in time coming off of a wild Saturday of college football. People are consistently peeking over at this board. He actually would not be my number one overall pick, nor would I bet him to be the number one overall pick. I think you got that next wave of NFL players, which is so enticing, which when you see Jaden Daniels come into the NFL and you go, I can get something like that with a guy with just as good an arm.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
It's a new era in CFP to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking, but he had that program was already going there.
Only on SportsGrid.
I do a sliding DiVincenzo to the one. Obviously, Terrence Jennings Jr., that is actually dynamic offensively and defensively. So we'll see how it works. I think it's a little bit of a work in progress. Do both teams win? Yes. I don't think at the end of the day, Minnesota could have afforded to keep Cat, Rudy, and Ant with that amount of money.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
I think the Washington Commanders are one of the best bets to win it all, or at the very least win the NFC.
Their offensive line, I do want to say one thing. It's very average. The coaching is good. They're getting good coaching from Bobby Johnson, their line coach, came from the Giants, but they've kind of overachieved. Let's call it like it is. Daniels has taken them up. Look, that division's not very good, and they could very well win it over the Eagles, and the Cowboys. They're not a Super Bowl team.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Always fun to chop it up with Brady Kannon, of course, of SportsGrid, and also his football contest podcast and video, which you can catch every Saturday here on SportsGrid as well. The lines are out for the Super Contest Circa coming out today. Brady, great to have you back here on the show, and we're getting close to moving time here in the contest in particular. Time to sort of take a look at where you stand and And I know that really means how you pick games the rest of the season. It's not so much about the teams you like the most. It's about making some way in the standings.
Yeah, it's a good point that you bring up, Craig. It is kind of that possible transition period here. I think early on in the season, obviously now we're into week 6. That will kick off tonight, of course, in the Pacific Northwest with the Seahawks and the 49ers. The first quarter, 4 or 5 weeks of the season, you're probably just trying to accumulate wins. And I know that sounds funny. Obviously, you want to accumulate wins throughout the season. But when you play in a contest, I was just talking about this with somebody yesterday. The picks you make in a contest are not necessarily the same games you bet. When you're betting games, obviously you're just trying to pick winners. But when you play in a contest, there are 3 types of winners. There's a winner that everyone's on, there's a winner that no one's on, and then there is a winner that is the opposite of the team that everyone is on, with the third one being the most powerful. Like last week, if you were on the Chiefs, the Saints were one of the very most popular picks in the Super Contest. If you were on the Chiefs, that's a huge win because you're beating so many different people that were on the other side. We happened to be on one of my teams. We were on the Ravens last week, and the Bengals were a very popular pick. So that was very advantageous to us. Did I bet the Ravens? No, I didn't, but it turned out to be a great contest pick. So, yeah, you're right. I think early on, it doesn't really matter where you land, if you're with the consensus or not. You just want to accumulate points. Now we're kind of at that period. You want to assess if you're in the Circa contest. It might be a point, Craig, where you turn completely 180 degrees and go for the booby prize. I did that one year. I think it was week 3 or week 4 in Circa. They do hand out, I think they pay the top 2 or 3 for the worst record in the contest. We're trying to pick losers as well. And I think the top prize is 100 or 150,000. It's a big deal. Now, if you're picking winners, they pay out the top 100. If you're trying to pick losers, I think they pay out only the top 2 or 3. But it is that time of the season. I did that one time. I think it was week 4 or something. I went 0-5. And I said, all right, I'm switching direction. And I started picking losers throughout the rest of the season. Did really well. Didn't cash, but finished like 30th. I mean, maybe if I would have kept going with winners, I would have taken home some money. But it's kind of the same thing. But you're right; it's decision time. A little game theory starting to come into play now at this point in the season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you guys are there, chasing booby prizes in either contest. You guys are like treading water, but it definitely, at least from my perspective, for you guys to cash, I think it is time at least to go a little more contrarian. Not to say that you guys aren't, but it is. I mean, it's getting close to that point. We're being just above 50%.
Rogue.
Yeah,
we're batting 500, and these lines are stale in the contest, right? So oftentimes, you've got a number that's 3.5 in the contest, and by the time we get to Saturday, when the deadline's there, it's 5 or something. Right. Sometimes you have to start taking bad numbers in the contest because nobody else will be taking that number. So like you say, contrarian, rogue, whatever phrase you want to use, you have to start trying to go the opposite direction in some cases to make up ground.
Yeah, and ugly dogs, that's part of it too. It feels like this week, I don't know about you, Brady, it feels like this is I Dare You week. That's what I'm calling it, because I see lines here and it's like, I dare you to take Denver plus the points. Well, how in the world are they getting 3 points against the Chargers? How is it possible Washington's getting a touchdown against Baltimore? How am I getting 3 points at home against Dallas when they were 7-point home favorites 3 weeks ago? And now I'm getting 3. It feels like I'm being dared on some of this stuff this week. And I don't know if that's going to end up, figuring it out. But, with teams playing the way that they're playing, I understand why the lines are made that way.
No, you're right. I mean, and I think that's why it's a great practice, whether you're in week 6 or week 1 or week 14, to make your own lines before. That's something that I do on Tuesday. After Monday Night Football is over, I'll get in here on Tuesday morning, and I have not seen any lines that have popped up or anything. I really try and, keep a wall between myself and any social media or anything where I might see a line on a game. And I just sit down and go through the practice of making the line on the game that I think it should be. And then I will compare it with what the opening lines actually are and where the movement has gone and stuff like that. And if I have a discrepancy of, maybe as much as 1.5 or 2 or more, then I want to dive into that game a little further and say, okay, is there an injury I'm not aware of? What's going on here? Is this just maybe an opinion that I have where I think the bookmaker is wrong? And you mentioned that Charger-Bronco game. Yeah, I mean, that's a case. Chargers-Broncos, let's see, I have it on another sheet of paper, but you're right. I mean, the Broncos are playing great football right now. It's surprising to see them, catching points there. So, yeah, that's one you have to ask yourself, is this a sucker bet or am I right? And maybe the book's wrong.
Yeah, no, Dallas too. I mean, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, Dallas is 7-point favorites against a good team. They get blown out. And then, they're getting points this week. It's crazy. But again, we'll sort it out before the weekend. Let's sort out tonight real quick. 49ers at the Seahawks, total of 48.5. We got a super high scoring game last week between the two teams on Thursday night. I'm hoping for that tonight. I kind of know who San Francisco is. I really don't know who Seattle is, though, after watching that game last week.
Yeah, I think Seattle is a little bit fraudulent, Craig. I mean, we thought their defense was pretty darn good to begin the year. Now we've seen it really exposed the past couple of weeks. I think the 49ers can expose it as well. I think Seattle can also score on San Francisco. You would think this game is headed towards over the total. I don't know if I would bet that. That number's, been inflated a little bit. The wise guys have jumped on it early. It may be a little bit high at this point. The 3.5 is interesting. If the wise guys like the underdog, you'd think that would be at 3 by now.
Right.
Maybe it gets to 4. The other thing is there is such a high percentage of the bets that are on the 49ers. That scares me a little bit.
All right. Thanks, Brady. We'll talk again soon.
You got it.
We're at a point in time coming off of a wild Saturday of college football. People are consistently peeking over at this board. He actually would not be my number one overall pick, nor would I bet him to be the number one overall pick. I think you got that next wave of NFL players, which is so enticing, which when you see Jaden Daniels come into the NFL and you go, I can get something like that with a guy with just as good an arm.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
It's a new era in CFP to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking, but he had that program was already going there.
Only on SportsGrid.
If you're sliding DiVincenzo to the 1, obviously Terrence Shannon Jr., that is actually dynamic offensively and defensively. So we'll see how it works. I think it's a little bit of a work in progress. Do both teams win? Yes. I don't think at the end of the day Minnesota could have afforded to keep Cat, Rudy, and Ant with that amount of money.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
I think the Washington Commanders are one of the best bets to win it all, or at the very least win the NFC.
Their offensive line, I do want to say one thing. It's very average. The coaching is good. They're getting good coaching from Bobby Johnson, their line coach. Came from the Giants, but they've kind of overachieved. Let's call it like it is. Daniels has taken them up. Look, that division's not very good, and they could very well win it over the Eagles, and the Cowboys. They're not a Super Bowl team.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. As we get ready to wrap up the show, we'll have another update on the damage of Hurricane Milton in the Tampa Bay area and also get into, of course, a little soccer and some baseball as well. It's time now, of course, for our last licks. All right, let's start off with a really cool idea, and wanted to end somehow today on a feel-good story, so we're going to do this one. This is a company called Field of Vision, and a co-founder named David Denneher has created a brand new sport and physical activity for the blind, which is basically a handheld device that is going to allow people who are blind to have something in their hands that simulates the on-field activity that's going on. At the very least, they're starting off with soccer. So basically what this is the blind can hold on to this device. It almost looks like a soccer field, but when you're holding it, it kind of simulates the back and forth nature of the players when a goal is struck, when a goal is kicked, and almost similar to holding an Xbox controller, I guess, when it rumbles. I don't know if you used an Xbox controller before, but a really cool idea for people to experience the game in a way that they never have before. Of course, hearing the game is one thing, but actually feeling the game is something really that can only be done in this way. So congrats to Field of Vision for getting this new technology started. I am very excited to see how this works for them. Needless to say, this is a story that kind of caught me off guard as we jump into our next one here, which is right now one of the most popular fields in all of college football, without a doubt, is Boise State. But USA Today put out a poll and asked for what the best attraction was for sports fans. And for the second year in a row, I can't believe this. The Boise State Broncos, their field is the best attraction in all of sports for the second year in a row. This is voted by sports fans, apparently, in some poll. Now, again, I've been to a lot of different places across this country. World Series, championships, NCAA. I've seen it all. I've been to it all. I've never been to see a game at Boise State, but apparently this is the number one attraction in the United States of America. Not Lambeau Field, not any of these historic parks like Yankee Stadium or Fenway Park, or even going to see a game at Ohio State or Michigan. It is Boise State, according to USA Today. The Blue has been named the best attraction by sports fans by USA Today. Have you ever been there before? Has anybody watching, streaming, ever been there before? Hit me up on social media. I want to hear about your experience. At Craig Mish, at SportsGrid, at SportsGrid TV. All right, now finally, Hurricane Milton, as of right now, damage severe all across the West Coast, Sarasota, Siesta Key, Bradenton, Tampa, St. Petersburg as well. You may have heard us talk about this earlier in the show. Tropicana Field lost the roof of the stadium. And so no comment yet from anybody with the Rays or Major League Baseball, but they're going to be up against it here, getting this stadium ready in time for April, which is when the next season, of course, starts. There is a little bit of a silver lining for Raymond James Stadium in Tampa Bay, timing-wise. Now, video-wise, for those of you who have found this stuff on social media, you will see that Raymond James Stadium would be unplayable if there was a game this week. It is completely flooded, looked like, honestly, another lake or another Tampa Bay inside Raymond James Stadium. But they do not play until the 21st of October. So they basically have 11 days to get this thing ready. I know there are a lot of more important things to think about in that area right now, but they dodged a bullet, so to speak, because I am telling you now that anybody that I've spoken to that lives in that area says no way would they have been able to play a game this week. Buccaneers playing at home, they're not. They're on the road and then on the road again, and then they are back on the 21st. So again, lives have been lost. 4 is the count that I'm seeing right now that's being in the state reported in the state of Florida. And in addition, 3 million people without power in my state of Florida as well. So wishing all the best to those of you who are pushing through that as well. All right, that will do it for our show here on NewsWire today. And coming up next, we've got some great programming. Early line, you'll catch me on there previewing some of the baseball games. We've got Pharrell Coast to Coast, 3 o'clock Eastern. Game time decisions following that, and then exclusive programming tonight with Pro Football Today, getting you ready for the 49ers and Seahawks in-game live after that, and then Pro Football Today post-game. That is your schedule the rest of the day here on SportsGrid. Also want to thank our guest contributors, Brady Kannon, Michael DeCourcy, and Matthew Waters. Great job by all of them today, as well as our director, Luke, and our producer, Frank. I'm Craig Mish. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday here on SportsGrid. We'll be back for another edition of the show. That is tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, exclusively here on SportsGrid. Have a great day, everyone. See you then.